like I didn't even like Sunday was game 7 and I sat down with my pops to watch it and stuff and I was just like it didn't even hit home that I was like, man, the season could be over if they don't like usually if you don't have a bunch of distractions and real life and stuff, you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally locked in. But this was like it just kind of snuck up on me. It was surreal. So
Which way were you leaning on Game 7, or did you have a lean? Did you know?
I kind of just set myself up. I was expecting a loss.
Were you?
But I pressed record, but I didn't actually take us live yet, so I'm getting ready to do that. But I was prepared, Jig. I was like, I think that
I
was
was
that
too.
Cleveland thing that we talked about. So
Yeah, we're
yeah,
all we're always all set.
they're like, oh, we got this. We got this on the disappointment side. Here we
We
go.
can handle this. We can handle this. We're a very resilient bunch.
Yeah.
It's basketball time at the
Rubber Rim Job. Season 3, episode 15, Jig. Survive and advance. Survive and advance.
They did.
Whew, there's a lot, man. That first series was a long year.
Wasn't it? That series did not go the way that the first 2 games went, but there were indicators. There were flags.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you just looked at the first 2 games results without watching the games,
Sure.
then you might have said, "Oh, this series is over."
Your audio is super low. I don't know if there's something you can do over there. I just want to give you a heads
There
up.
is.
Okay.
How's that? Is that better?
Oh, that's perfect, brother.
Yeah. Just one button.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like we went into it with the expectation that it probably would be a longer series than a lot of people were projecting, even though we chose to play Orlando, kind of. But then once you
definitely chose to play Orlando.
Once you got into it, you're like, wait a second, no, this is actually not fun. Like this is hard. Like this is no joke. So we had oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
So we had a game 1 win, 97-83, followed by a game 2 win, 96-86. And then we took this whole road show down to Orlando, where I joined the Cavaliers for game 3.
You did.
I flew into town. I met Stan Van Gundy in the airport.
And, that was cool.
No, it was really cool. It was totally unexpected. It was my flight landed the exact same time. I think it was a Thursday, the exact Wednesday. I don't know. The exact same time as a red-eye flight from Boston landed in Orlando. And Stan Van had a whole day that he could stay at his house before he had to fly down to Miami for game 3 of that series. And he was really cool, just running to him and talking to him and stuff. And then game 3 was not what anybody expected, Jig.
I did not anticipate that much of a beatdown. I thought they'd probably lose that game because that's a pretty standard thing to happen in a series like that. When a team isn't completely outmatched, they win game 3. They go back home, they win game 3 when their backs are up against the wall.
40 points. It was like they didn't even show up.
That they didn't show up. They just flat out didn't show up. They took the first punch and they just
crumpled.
They got paid off by the mob on that one. They took their money and ran.
And so I'm still in Orlando for game 4, but I refused because I actually went last minute. I paid to go to the game, and I was like, I'm not doing that again. So then game 4, I'm in the sports bar of my hotel at the Hilton Orlando. Huge resort or huge hotel. And they just so happened to have the world cheerleader competition. It was like,
oh, did they really?
Oh man, it was terrible. I got video and stuff I'll put on the board. It was like, you didn't want to, like, I would have, if I had known they were going to be there, I would have been like, I'll stay at it like a cheaper hotel. Like, this is crazy.
Chaos.
From the moment you woke up, it was teams of cheerleaders everywhere. And it was just like, man, they even overtook the sports bar. Like, they were in there. These little girls.
You can't enjoy your game in privacy at most hotels in Orlando. Yeah, it's not
girls
possible.
Were in there ordering shots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so game 4 started off, and it looked totally different. And then somewhere in there, we lost the steering wheel and ended up having almost an equally embarrassing loss.
They were up 10 at the half.
Oh man, it was so
7,
crazy.
8, something like that.
112-89. We were in the driver's seat. I felt like, okay, we corrected what, like we looked like the experienced team who just had a little bit of a brain fart kind of thing. Head back to Cleveland for game 5. And it came down to the wire. Good guys pull out a 104-103 win.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things happened at the end of that game that was like, it still gave me some pause, Jig. I was like, like it felt like, first and foremost, the biggest play of the end of that game was Evan Mobley block to close out.
Beautiful play there.
Beautiful play. I want to say he blocked it with his left. Whose layup was that? Was that a Suggs? I think so. Yeah. In a way that you were like, okay, if Mobley's going to be able to do that with the game on the line, you can see it.
Yes.
Like between game 4 and game 5, Jared Allen was ruled out with a pierced rib on an elbow, clearly dirty elbow he got from Franz Wagner, however you want to say it, Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Which there was a lot of that throughout the first couple games of the series where it was just like the refs were letting them set the tone physicality and everything. And if the Cavs were touching them or breathing back on them, they were like, you guys can't do that. You had Mo Wagner. He was flopping all over the place. And anytime somebody breathed on him like a coral one time, I think.
Yeah, he's nasty with that flopping, man.
Man, it was terrible. It got to the point where people like Marcus Morris, people were getting frustrated with him and they were just blatantly like pushing him around on the court and stuff. But he was, as soon as he felt contact, he was exaggerating it like crazy.
Yep.
Head back down to Orlando for game 6. And it ends up being 103-96. That was some ugly work there. That's where Franz took over, had 30-something points, and Banchero was getting whatever he wanted. It was just a frustrating game to see because you were like, we very much can close this thing out. It was a close game, but it just they looked like the more experienced club for that game.
They did.
In that game, we have to make note of the fact, man, Caris LeVert and Niang, it was like, wait, what are you guys here for if you're going to be playing like this in that game 6? There was a little bit of yo-yoing that was happening with Yang throughout the series. He actually didn't even get to play the entirety. I think was it game 4 or game 5, where JBB just pulled him out of rotation because he was just being picked on. But then for game 6, he was back. He was the first guy off the bench or second guy off the bench along with Caris, and both of them were a big zero. I think he did hit a 3 in that game. And also in that game 6, Sam Merrill came off the bench in the second half. He had a couple threes. So it was like there were things that showed us, hey, if you make some adjustments, these guys will respond to it. But we didn't do them consistently enough in that game 6. And then we bring us to Sunday's game, which is what you want. Like, this is what you asked for.
It's fun.
The eyes of the NBA world were on Cleveland. As soon as the game started, you saw that the whole city showed up. Like, how did you feel as you saw that game starting? Like, it gave me like LeBron era, like it gave me that goosey kind of feel seeing it, the national broadcast. You got Moondog laying on the court with signs and shirts and stuff. And, I was like, man, it just feels good. Like, there's nothing like a mid-afternoon game 7 in your city because you're at your house.
The excitement from a game 7, there's nothing that compares except really from a sports standpoint,
right, except
an NFL playoff game, which I think we haven't experienced too many of. But
right.
the build, it's the build up, it's that's it, right? You
Super Bowl kind of thing.
It's right. It's win or go home. And there's a ton of build up, like you're thinking about it, like you're trying to visualize like how's the game gonna go, like
right.
Every play matters. Like one bad play at the wrong time can completely turn the game, right? And that's why that stretch at the beginning of the game, I think, was really, really nerve-wracking. And it just felt like that was it, right?
Man.
And I want to get started. I want to get back to the beginning of this series, but I want to go back and I want to cover a couple things. First of all,
Okay.
beautiful coverage there. I think you nailed you absolutely nailed the general flow of how things went there. I want to just cover a couple things too, just from a player standpoint. And I have to hit JBB as well. But first, Donovan, I know all of us were watching him and saying, damn it, Don. Once we got to game, I'm not looking at the game log right now. I'm just thinking off the top.
Sure.
We'd gotten to game 3 and we would have still been at which game did he go off? Was that game 4 or game? What was the first game that he really went off? Game one, he had a really good game.
Honestly, I mean, he started
off hot, but then he kind of just faded, right?
Started off hot, and then he was like a couple of those first 2 games in Orlando. I think he had like maybe 4 points in the second half total.
Exactly, he faded. He started. Right. I'm gonna look. So he started off hot. He had an overall pretty good game, and then game 2, terrible. Game 3, faded, and it was just one of these things where it's like I think we're all thinking it, and it's like, what's going on in the playoffs with this guy? Like, what do we really have here? Like, why isn't he doing what he did with the Jazz? Like, when are we going to see the Donovan game? Is he hurt? Is he
that hurt? Yeah.
Is he that hurt? Like, what's really happening here? So to me, it was all like, it's hard to not watch it and think like, what's the real problem with this guy? Is it that he's not being coached the right way? Is it that he doesn't care? Is it that is he hurt? Like, what all is happening? And then throughout the series, it just felt like he just was pecking and poking and then finding his way. And then there was that game 6. And then the dude just 5 was 5 the one where he had 50 points. Which one was 50? No, 50 points. The 50-point game was game 6 and they lost. And
we lost you for a second. And you said, and then there was that game.
Game 6. Game 6 was a 50-point game, and they lost. Okay. And I thought he was so tired and injured. I was like, there's no way he's going to come back out here in game 7 and have much to give. And he did, man. He shot, and he was pretty overall not wildly efficient, but he got it done. He had 39 points, ton of great free throws, and the dude was just a freaking leader on the floor.
Right.
And there's that short video that came out. I think hopefully everybody will ultimately see it. But it's him sitting down with DG, and it's the 2 of them on the bench. I think we all saw the big hug that he gave DG after the game, right?
Right.
And it's him, and he's telling DG, he says, I believe in you. Believe in yourself. Now, should DG already believe in himself in year 5? Yeah, he should already believe in himself. Should DG need that pass in the corner from Don that was clearly set up to basically say, yo, shoot it, finish this game off? I don't know. That's for those 2 to decide. But guess what? He hit the damn shot. They took the game. That was one of those game-turning shots right there that he hit in the corner. And that type of thing for him to put his arm around him and say, man, that kind of stuff gets under my skin. I love that kind of stuff. And well, little stuff like that to me that tells me, even if he's missing and he just keeps going and makes these shots, that's a dude to me. That's a dude that I want on my team. And I just love that he stuck with it and kept it going.
So I mean, Donovan is 27, about to be 28.
Yeah, he is getting up there.
That's part of you asked the question, you posed the question, should Darius have known it already? The crazy thing is, at the same age Darius is now, Donovan had that happen to him in that series against the Nuggets. In back-to-back games, he had brain farts. Like he had an 8-second violation in that series.
Did he?
He also had I want to say the end of the game of game 7. There was a Donovan turnover, like in a very clutch.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that like that bubble series, and then I believe the next year he had something very similar too. And he probably, I'm saying this without knowing, but I guarantee you he either had a Mike Conley or a Royce O'Neal come up to him and pick him up in a way that he's like, wait a minute, I know what to say here. I know what to do here. So you're like in an ideal world, a leader that we want Darius to be doesn't have to grow through that kind of stuff. But it like Donovan even had an opportunity to grow at his age, with the right vets that were able to talk to him. So that's the kind of thing that you can't teach. Like that's the type of experience thing that you're like, wait, no, I guess I'm grateful, that we did go and acquire a Donovan for a situation like that, Now, we didn't get that last year. And so from year to year, you want to see growth and you want to see lessons that are learned and passed on. Because last year when the Knicks series happened, we were like, where is the leadership on this team?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
the group as a whole looks shocked, looks shell-shocked. I'll point out another point to build on what you're saying. The post-game locker room, they showed JBB and he's like, hey guys, this and that. We did this, we did that. And he's like, all right, let's get ready for Boston. And Donovan says, wait, nope, hold on. And he pulled everybody in. He said, hey, that's not what we came here for. Like, don't even, he was like, I guess you can pat yourself on the back, but that we just did what we were supposed to do. That ain't what we settling for. So he built on top of what, JBB was about to say break. And he's like, no. Like, we got to include this because we got to embed this in our collective thinking. We didn't do anything special, guys. The monkey's not off our back. Let's go.
So there's something to Donovan putting the Mario Brothers, the Mario Brothers mushroom in Darius Garland's mouth and just giving him those brief bump ups, right? Like that'll give us a couple minutes at a time, right?
Right. I'll take it.
I'll take it
if he does it every game.
I'll take it. I'll take it if we get that every game. But we got to get the training wheels off, right? I mean, it works. I mean, listen, that's what a great leader does. And I think he is. I mean, the dude is very self-aware. Donovan is.
Super.
And I do think he is. I mean, he's got a leadership style that I would respond very well to. He's the type of guy I would want to play with. He's the kind of guy. It's very rare that superstars come out and become coaches. It's not usually that guy. He would make a great coach.
You know who else is showing that right now? Ant Edwards. Like this dude.
I love him so much. I love him so much, man.
So I
love Ant.
But when you talk about, if there's a list that we've got and we say these guys right now are the top guys who are delivering on the floor, and at the same time they're giving you that intangible leadership thing, you got to say LeBron is up there still to this moment, because he's so savvy and stuff like that with his what he's doing in the locker room. But also there was a point in time when he was in Cleveland and he chose to just be passive aggressive. We hated it. He's not doing that anymore.
He doesn't.
So LeBron is up there. Man, for this playoffs right here, what I'm seeing, the next person he may even be the top person. Anthony Edwards. He took over that Phoenix series, and there was a game where
he's so young too.
Yeah, he pulled Cat out of his own thinking.
I saw that. That's the first thing I was thinking of.
There was a game 1 against Denver just now. He pulled Naz Reid out of having the same thought process in real time, and they played his sound and stuff where he came over on the bench next to Naz Reid, and he's like, "Look, you got to keep shooting. Like you can't, so there's that's happening." And when we see this type of leadership that Donovan is exhibiting and Ant Edwards is using, like Ant Edwards has really got the champs down 2-0 just by being this type of leader. It just takes you back to the like late 80s, like that Magic Johnson, Larry Bird time, where a team wouldn't even advance unless they had a person who could do it. Like it would be like, all right, here's Magic and his guys, here's Larry and his guys, here's Isaiah and his guys. Those other teams who were super talented, if they didn't have that guy willing to play that role,
once they got stuck in the big moments, you just can't rely on talent alone. You and I both love leadership. I know we're both interested in that stuff. So I know we could go on about this, and I could. Let's talk about this. Let's definitely get into this. The difference between the way he handles his teammates and the fact that he's doing this so young is mind blowing to me. The difference between him and, you'd say like a guy like, hey, MJ, who was one of the best, is he's clearly approaching his guys on their level, right? It's very clear to me whether he's doing it instinctively or he's really sitting down and thinking about it. He's not just sitting there and chastising them and doing it from his own level, right?
And it's not passive aggressive.
It's not passive aggressive like LeBron used to do. And LeBron has totally evolved as a leader, which I respect. And I love that so much. I've seen him with I'll get back to that, but with Ant, it's so impressive how he goes to those guys on their level. So the way he talks to these guys is slightly different. It's very clear. And if you watched Cat and the way Jimmy Butler treated him, it's very obvious that Jimmy knew what buttons to press to shut him down. Right. I love Jimmy just because he's a badass. And I know when he's on the floor, he can shut guys down. On the other hand, Ant can shut down his opponents and he can bring his teammates up. And that is a badass leader. They're both badasses.
That's a great leader. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
For different reasons.
We just saw we just watched the Philadelphia 76ers go down. And as I'm watching them, I literally said, they're just missing that leadership on the floor. Like, because every time something weird happened, you saw Embiid hanging his head, not communicating with teammates. It was a bunch of weird stuff happening. It's like, man, you dudes are more talented, but where's the leadership? A couple years ago when they had Jimmy Butler, but then when they had PJ Tucker. Have you ever seen that clip where PJ Tucker sits on the bench and he looks over at what's the backup big guy name?
For the Sixers?
Yeah, Sixers backup center right behind Embiid.
Shit. Yeah. I'm looking. Yeah, go on.
He looks over at the dude and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like he's talking over Harden too.
Are you talking about Bamba?
No, not Bamba, the other guy. He's like, he actually showed pretty well this year. And it was here, I'm about to tell you. Because it's gonna bother me if I don't. So PJ Tucker sitting on the bench and he looks over at that dude and he just was like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" Like literally in the middle of the game, just stopped everything in a huddle. Dude's name is oh shoot, where you at, man? Paul Reed.
Oh, okay.
So he looks over at Paul Reed.
I didn't see this.
What are you talking about? It's a meme on Twitter, like it's all over the place.
I don't remember this.
He like mugged him. So they've always had that type of leadership that Embiid, gave, go ahead and do it. And those people would get in his face too. So one of the reasons why we saw them go to that game and barely just lose it to that Kawhi shot was Jimmy Butler was holding Embiid, Ben Simmons, everybody accountable. Mm-hmm. That leadership style, it can wear on guys though. And when we're seeing it wear on guys in Miami, we heard about this year, Tyler Hero and a couple of guys were actually pushing back against Jimmy.
Was that video of Pat Riley real, of him chastising Jimmy Butler? Did you see that?
You wanted to be AI. You wanted to be like like that Drake diss record where he put
I have not seen a coach or GM go off on a guy that obviously in a long time.
But let's talk about that just for a second. I know we're all over the place, and we gotta get ready to talk about Boston at some point in time.
That's fun stuff.
Yeah. We see a pattern now of Pat Riley doing this. Like, do you remember when LeBron first started thinking about coming back?
I do.
And it was like all of a sudden Pat Riley started throwing him under the bus in real time. He's like, I mean, you got some guys that are just run away from the challenge. And it was like, that doesn't work with today's player. You cannot say that to them publicly and think they're gonna be like, okay, Pat, I hear what you're saying. He did it to Dwayne Wade on the way out the door too.
He did.
So, I mean, it's all cool and everything. Everybody's like, oh, he culture. Pat Riley's got this and he's got that going for him.
But they can't tolerate it. Yeah, guys can't tolerate it anymore.
You only got so many times to do that before the players pick up on that and they're like, wait a minute,
They just take off.
this dude thinks he owns us, kind of thing. And then Pat Riley's one of the only president of basketball operations and GMs that actually has equity in the team. So he's an owner of Miami.
He's not wrong in my opinion. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old kid and the guy says that to you, then you probably back down and you're just like, shit, I probably shouldn't be talking. I wasn't there. I didn't show up. But this dude's 30 years old and he's been there.
What he shut down in Jimmy Butler is LeBron does it every year. You know, the moment he gets eliminated or something, LeBron's like, wait, look at me. No, look over here.
I know.
So Jimmy Butler was
he did it last year.
He was just dipping in his LeBron bag a little bit, you know, at 34, 35, whatever Jimmy Butler.
I remember when LeBron wasn't sure if he was going to retire last year.
Oh, man. And as soon as the Nuggets like eliminated them, he was like, no, guys, look at me. Like, let's talk about the fact that I might just shut it down. Everybody was like, okay. So Jimmy Butler attempted to do that. But then you've got the head of your organization telling you to shut up. Like literally.
You know, Jimmy got on the phone to LeBron right after that, right?
Right. Like, if Jimmy Butler doesn't switch teams this summer, I would be surprised.
Yeah, me too.
And that right there is like a draw a line in the sand and basically get on, like Pat Riley said. I don't even know what he was thinking by saying that. So let's just, you know, my Lord, let's move past it. Like when it comes down to it, the team is Jimmy Butler is the heartbeat of that team. Like he gets these guys together. He raised Tyler Hero. So it's like, what's happening? Like, what are you about to do?
Pat has been thinking about that for a while now.
And they've had stuff the whole way. Like Jimmy Butler had an issue with Spoelstra a couple of seasons ago where he's going at him on the sideline and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're, you know, so it'd be interesting to watch that because there are a couple of guys down there I've always had my eye on, you know, that I was like, but we've learned now that heat culture doesn't always travel. So just keep an eye on that. But
good time. Yeah. You want to transition to our heat culture guy and whether he was able to transition to a Cavs playoff performance.
Great time for the Mr. Strus to join the party. Right. And I mean, he'd always been a part of the party. He was
sure.
Some of the early games you were like, did this guy forget how to play basketball? Like there was
game one.
It was, wow. I was like, what the hell is Max Strus doing?
He was doing the Levert thing where he was just all over the court. It looked like he just hit like 3 rails before he came out there. And it just looked like, is it like what happened? Have you ever been in the playoffs before? Like
it looked like Monstars took his skills all the way.
Or
he couldn't even dribble like in the first couple games. And it was like, what are you doing? What's happening?
Making those backwards passes like towards midcourt. I mean, I guess these guys, the nerves get a hold of them. I mean, it makes sense, but my God, home game,
yeah,
starter, what was going on?
And then just when you needed it the most, I think during Game 5 he might have. There was a stretch in Game 5 where he was like, "No, I can contribute here." I mean, Game 6. I'm sorry, and then just to have Game 7 for him to deliver the way he did, it was like, okay.
Man,
because you were getting ready to get chased out of town, to be honest. Like literally, and Niang hasn't escaped. Like he's not off the chopping block in regard to
Game 5 was when he turned it on. You were right.
Okay.
Game 5, he had a really good game.
So kudos to him for when we really needed it. He delivered there in Game 7. He did.
Game 5, he popped up. Game 6, he actually didn't have a terrible game, but then he hit some big ones in Game 7. And he was him. I mean, he was himself in those games, and he really did contribute all over the place. But Game 7 was just some huge shots that he hit.
Yeah, we don't win Game 7 without Strus showing up.
For sure. Now, I thought it was interesting that Garland said that he knew that they were coming back when our old boy Sam Merrill hit a big shot in there. What did you think about the usage or lack thereof of the Super Soaker in this series? And what do you think his role or lack thereof will be in the Celtics series.
This is a part of a bigger conversation that if we open this door, there's no reason Sam Merrill shouldn't have had most of Niang's minutes in this series.
Okay.
With the way that Niang was a total negative on offense and a liability on defense. At the very least, we know Merrill would have hit some of those shots. Like he would have at least contributed to spreading the floor. So it was frustrating that it took that long. And then it was also frustrating that when he did get some like 2 or 3 minutes here, JBB just didn't come back to him and show him that, hey, like you can trust that you're going to be out there to let that flamethrower go, because you don't realize, or maybe some people do, if you've ever played the game, or if you've been in positions where you're not robots, you know what I'm saying? Like there's something, your mindset, you have to be like, hey, if I do this, it will not impact my ability to contribute if it doesn't work out,
right,
to a certain extent, and if your hook is that short, even on the most confident dead-eye shooter, you can guard that shooter by not giving him minutes and letting him know that you will not be hurt by missing a couple of these kind of things. So by the time that he actually was used as a threat, it was very obvious he should have been used as a threat throughout the whole series. I mean, there's no other way to put that. So, but I don't want to. We got a game tonight, and I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like what you hope for, Jig, and what we've seen, because we've seen this a little bit, but we haven't seen it from JBB going from series to series, right? Because we never got out of it.
Never done it.
Right? So what we're hoping for is, as we start this series tonight, which is what we're about to transition to.
Transition City.
As we start this series tonight, we need to see John Blair Bickerstaff take mistakes from the first round that he very clearly, should have owned. Like not playing Merrill, my fault. Sticking with Niang and this thing, my fault. Like, and you gotta implement those in real time out the gate. Okay. Like literally from game to game, we've got to see a difference tomorrow. Do you agree with that? I mean, tonight. Sorry.
I 100% agree with that. I even thought that game one, Strus needed to come out earlier.
I agree.
Believe it or not. So I agree 100%. You don't want to give guys the hook too early, or that's going to come back to bite you in the fourth quarter, right? Whenever they come back in. The next time they're going to be too nervous. But if you have guys that are making plays that are so bad that they're just a net negative across the board, take them out, have
right.
your talk, settle them down. Don't let the game get away from you just because you want to keep a guy in there, and not let their confidence get away from them. Strus should have been pulled in that first game earlier. So yeah, I mean, these substitutions need to be much quicker with these guys. They definitely need to be focusing on defense in this series, because this team is going to be just absolutely ripping threes.
So let's like mentally and theoretically, let's do our transition to Boston, right?
That's what we need to do here. So we need to talk about matchups.
All right, no more Mickey Mouse land. All right, guys, this is what we asked for. Like, this is what you guys asked for with the way that you made sure that you were in this part of the bracket instead of that part of the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's go time now.
Okay? We chose it. Yeah, I mean, we chose the Magic. Now. We thought we were going to beat them. We did, but that means now we're going on to the Celtics.
It's go time. So Brian Scalabrine on NBA radio a couple of days ago, he said the Magic would much rather see the Cavs than, the Celtics would much rather see the Cavs than the Magic. And he listed physicality, their size, those things. We think we've got that advantage. Put that on the bulletin board. Okay. Cause this all right. Did we choose to come to this part? Yes, we did. But there's I like some of that, because for some reason, this group has always gotten it up against Boston.
They play well against Boston.
And Boston,
especially.
I was just about to say that Boston's fans and their boards and stuff. If you care to wander into the cesspool of those chowder heads, right? There's a bunch of guys over there that are like, yeah, Donovan's cool. Yeah, okay, Darius, okay, Mobley, but that Caris LeVert, like those dudes stay up at night fearful that we're gonna let Caris cook.
Caris is
So
gonna cook, man. Let him cook. Let me cook. Let me cook, baby.
let me take this opportunity because I've long been a Caris anti-truther.
You have.
Let me take this opportunity to say Caris showed up.
He showed up in Game 7.
He showed up in Game 7. And he showed up, and we don't win Game 7 without Caris's contributions.
100%. Because he kept the minute early.
Let me see if I get this right.
He kept that lead from turning into 30.
That's for Caris LeVert.
Absolutely.
But I'm also saying to you, you don't get no rest. Like I'm coming back to you, and I'm saying to you, Caris, out the gate, we need that guy. We need you to put that chef hat on.
He's also going to have to play perimeter defense too.
What is it though about Boston that is it just the way that they defend as a group or a unit that he's able to just slither through? Because Boston switches everything, don't they? 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is just something that they're just not prepared for with this type of guy. And we've seen it. Certain teams have a Achilles heel of a prototype of a player.
Does he get up for big opponents in general? How has he done against Denver, Minnesota this year?
Yeah,
just the Celtics.
There's something about the way that the Celtics defend that Caris just licks his chops.
Just the Celtics.
Yeah, and I think it's a system thing where they play a style of defense that he's like, I know how to attack this. He's a surveyor.
So it's the switches, and then that switch gives him that one moment that he needs to choose a player to pick at, and then he goes after that player because he plays that game where he chooses a side of the floor,
how to attack him.
Exactly, and that's his game. His game is to choose an area of the floor, and we know he's very chaotic game.
He's always frustrated us because he is a surveyor and he doesn't just keep the ball moving and play within a system. Right. He's a guy that's like, all right, and there's guys in history, and we've talked about this, and current guys, even the Malik Monks, the Colin Sextons, the whatever, that you're just like the quickly up in Toronto, that you're like, when this guy comes on the floor, it's not that he's matchup proof, it's that you don't know what you're gonna get game to game because he's gonna approach it like, the whole team can be doing this. I'm gonna approach it like this.
That's what he does.
That's what Caris has always been. So Boston fans are afraid of that. And I can't see that they had that in the Miami series. I don't think they had anybody that they had to check for that was that type of player.
Well, with Jimmy Butler out, Miami was an easy beatdown for them, right? I mean, all they had to do was just stay hot and play their normal game. I mean,
sure.
The Heat didn't have much. They're gonna have their hands much more full with the Cavs here.
One of the things I talked about with Stan Van Gundy in the airport, my friend Stan, he talked about this series actually favored like whatever's happening here between whoever comes out of this gauntlet of Orlando versus Cleveland, they actually get an added bonus going into the next round because of this gauntlet. He was like, the two styles that these guys play, if they can force that style on Boston, they actually give themselves a plus 10, plus 20. And I asked him to expound on that, and he was like, it may not look good what we're seeing in this series between these two teams, but Boston really doesn't want to play that way at all.
I think it helped tremendously that the Cavs just came out of this very physical series.
Yes,
I really do.
Too.
And then
it helps for game one. Jig, it helps like right now because ultimately you're gonna punch this team in the mouth. You can and you should be able to, and they're gonna be like, oh wait, we did they have physicality? Yes, but it was like dirty stuff, like Cody Martin pulling, flipping Tatum over his back, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. This right here, where it's like, no, every series we just dealt with the team from Mickey Mouse Land, bumping, pushing, elbowing, rib checking, like we literally just dealt with a street fighter
They were
game.
dirty. They were very
It's
dirty. Orlando is very dirty. And the Cavs played, I'm not going to say surprisingly clean, but in spite of that, they played clean the whole way through. Morris never got they never threw Mook out there for just a dirty foul. Because even when he got called for that chicken wing, that was not a dirty foul. He was trying to get clear of that play. I can't remember what game that was. I think it was the game 5 that they won. They just got through it playing very physically.
I agree.
And I do think that that's going to be valuable for this series. It's very hard for me to believe that they're going to win this series. It really is, just because the Celtics are so experienced and they've just got they got the players that they've got, and they just whack these threes like crazy. But with that said,
Porzingis went down,
when Porzingis went down, they lost 20 points a game. That's a lot of points, man. When the Cavs lost Kevin Love against the Celtics years ago, they lost 18 points a game. And if you recall, the Celtics hung with them quite well after that. That is a big loss. That's a big loss.
But it's not I agree with you, and I don't mean to talk over you. I don't think it's just a big loss from it's 20 points, it's 18 points, because ultimately Derek what is his name? Derek White just picked up he literally scored 40 points a game after.
Yeah, he did.
But
he did.
It's what Porzingis represented for them is a versatility and a 5 that was able to make them unguardable in half court. Okay.
Yeah, Derek White's a guard. We can cover a guard.
Yeah, no. So Porzingis' versatility and his ability to make their half court game unguardable. That's
absolutely.
So when you take that out the picture, they're the Celtics from last year. Mm-hmm. When you take that out the picture, they're the Celtic team that I think we beat them 3 out of 4 last year or whatever. And they're, those games weren't like, oh, this is just, they didn't even show up to play. We went in overtime back to back early in the year with them last year.
They beat them in overtime both games. And we kicked their asses. I know the one game was like 10 points, a 10-point win. I believe the second game was similar, where they just.
So the whole complexion of Boston changes when you take Porzingis off the floor.
I agree 100%.
So here we go. All right. So, and, in the past you would say, all right, well, they got Horford and then they got Robert Williams and,
Are we going to play Tristan 35 minutes a game with Horford out there?
Here's the thing. Here's the beautiful thing about this team, the way that Kobe did put them together. The last minute, Mook Morris, didn't he play for Boston at one point in time? I think. Was it Marcus Morris?
Go on. I'll look it up. He's played for a lot of teams.
This team is actually, if you did not have Porzingis, which was the that missing piece that Boston needed, everybody, like everything else, falls in a place where you're like, no, wait, no, I give them a shot. Like the way that they always play Boston, the way Boston's never really had an answer for LeVert, and the way Tristan has always owned Al Horford, who's their heartbeat after, like Horford, whether he was starting, come off the bench or whatever, he's always been their heartbeat. Because the way that we talked about Donovan's leadership, that's what you got to talk about Horford's on-court leadership with them, right?
Absolutely.
So, the guy who has always been the Horford kryptonite, who has always baffled Al Horford. I don't know why this is, but
neither.
Tristan Thompson has always owned Al Horford.
He has.
There's something about the way he hustles, the way he sacrifices, the way he put it. Horford hates it. And he just doesn't play like himself. He shies away from it. The funny thing about that is I feel like everybody has a doppelganger in the league that will perfectly negate what you are and what you want to do.
Definitely.
And you just want to stay away from that guy. Like if you can, let's not even get in a series where that guy is there. Well, Al Horford is going to look across at the start, like during the national anthem and stuff. And Tristan's going to be over there like this.
He's just praying Tristan doesn't come out there. So Mook did play for Boston, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. No, I remember it because he was about to. And while he was there, he was about to fight Tristan while he was there. I remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah. Him and Tristan, they were getting ready to fight on the court while he was playing for Boston.
He's played with Horford.
So Cavs fans, you got that. We got that on our side. Like there's a guy who's been in that locker room who knows the makeup of everybody that's there because that team's been together for some time outside of Drew Holiday and Derek White. Okay. While he was there, they still had Marcus Smart playing their role, and they've obviously upgraded from him. But he knows Al Horford. He knows Tatum. He knows Brown. He knows that collective of a group. He knows the way that they all lean on each other and the way they all communicate and the way that they all, so.
Let's talk about Tatum and Brown. What are we doing with those two this series? How do we play them?
What do you mean, just defensively?
Defensively.
So I feel a lot better if we know for a fact, and we don't have word yet. Is Jared Allen playing tonight? Is he starting tonight?
I assumed he was out for the whole series.
Jared Allen for this series?
Yeah.
Don't say that.
That's what I thought. Maybe am I making a wrong assumption?
Dude, I don't know yet as of this moment.
I do not like that, Wagner, man. That was a total intentional cheap shot, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Cavaliers do not play the Celtics Tuesday night. Okay, so this is an old update. 4 hours ago, latest on Cavalier. That's Sportskeeda. That's not.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know. I asked that question not to deflect from what you're asking me, but in an ideal world, JBB plays with matchups in a way that he can get Mobley primarily on Tatum.
Okay.
They don't have a big guy. Boston doesn't. They've got dude from Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s best friend, Tillman. They've got Tillman as their only guy who has any type of post game, and he's not even like a regular rotation guy.
Okay.
And then they've got Al Horford. So, yeah, I mean, if we've got to have lineups where Mobley is out there with Morris or Tristan so that Mobley can primarily defend him, I'm fine with that. And then you've got a Coral that you can use primarily on Jaylen Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something for me, like, and I'm not like some hopeful Cavs fan when I say this, but Jaylen Brown, like, a Coral is the kind of guy that Jaylen Brown should be looking across and being as fearful as Horford. Like,
I agree.
Because when a Coral can sniff out that he can take certain things away, and Jaylen Brown does not have a left hand at all. And
Okoro was defender, quietly. Yeah, go on.
When you get those point of attack guys, like, the only thing Okoro couldn't do was take away Banchero's ability to just, rise above him in the mid range and take those shots. Mm-hmm. So that's why Banchero, did what he wanted to do in that regard. But Okoro made his life hell. So
nobody is stopping Banchero for the next 10 years of that guy's career.
My Lord.
I'm not holding that against Okoro even in the least. Nobody will stop that guy.
Yep. So that's my answer to you when you ask what do you do with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's kind of like these guys have still to this day, they're not like the perfect complementary players. They do not complement. The thing that made them really start working was Porzingis cluttered the floor. Mm-hmm. Literally, Porzingis being out is a chess move that we haven't. I'm saying this because I'm hopeful that these guys come out with the added intensity of the Orlando series, but also that we have a plan to make their floor feel shrunk. Because shrinking that floor for these two, they go right back into the my turn, your turn. We do not know how to play off of each other.
What you want.
Kind of thing.
You want my turn, your turn with guys like that, because that's what teams always want with us. They want Donovan and Garland to get forced into my turn, your turn, because it's just not. It's unless you have the two best players in the NBA, it's not effective.
So what does that mean, Jig? That means that you put Drew Holiday and Derek White into positions where they're going to have to be the next guys to, start freeing the floor up. Mm-hmm. And by nature, Drew Holiday has never been that guy, especially not when he's fourth in the pecking order.
He wants to distribute. Yeah.
He wants to distribute. He wants to make sure everybody else is going. So you got Tatum as the number one guy. You got Brown after him. And if defensively we can make that game hard for those two, then you've got Derek White next. And in Boston's ideal world, he's cooking against Darius. Defensively, we've seen he's not,
No, they're going to beat Darius. I mean, you can get past Darius pretty easily.
So we come out for game one if they're like, hey, let's isolate White on Garland because these other two guys right now, they're just defending us in a way we can't get them going. That may be what they're planning to do. And he can't do that. Derek White can't do that if you know, at the 8 or 9 minute mark, Caris is coming in for Darius, and then Darius comes back in for Donovan. You know, like there's things with the rotation that we can do so that this is a chess match. And that's what I'm hoping, JBB. It all starts for me is now that monkey is off this guy's back, can he show us that from series to series? Because you remember Mike Brown used to do that. We would be like, hey, from the Washington series where he was going up against Eddie Jones, I think was the coach, or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I can picture him with that blue eye.
Eddie.
I can picture his face with that.
Yeah. Princeton boy, where he would go from him to the next series.
Eddie Jordan.
From the first series where Mike Brown would have to work with Eddie Jordan's Princeton offense and his defensive principles, to the next series where he was going up against Mike Budenholzer, and the way he had the Hawks playing kumbaya offensively, but also defensively, they were just keeping everybody in front of them as a group. Can JBB do that here? Because he's coming off of Jamal Mosley's beat him up, muck him up, you know, dirty physical style to what Joe Mazzulla, who I do not believe, Jig, is the world's greatest tactician. I don't.
Why do you say that?
Joe Mazzulla's gonna have to show me. And so I'm putting the gauntlet down. I got my.
You don't seem to believe that the Celtics are really this much of a world-beating team.
Come back to me after 3 games.
Wow,
I truly don't, because like,
what do you think's going to happen game 1? Do you think the Cavs are fatigued after that series?
I think Boston has had off quite a few days here, and the series that they came off of, they weren't challenged the way that they were supposed to be. Yes, Miami ultimately they did the whole sum of all parts kind of thing, which they always do, but they weren't going up against any. There wasn't a single
Celtics
player.
Beat the hell out of them.
They had Bam, but Bam has never, to me, been like a guy who you can expect to be like, I'm actually going to carry us tonight, boys.
No, he's a role player.
If you're asking me just to, you know, because we're at 50-something minutes and we will close within the next 10. If you're asking me, what do I feel like? I feel like the Cavs come out and punch them in the mouth first. And I also feel like coming off of Game 7 and coming off the type of series they came off of, we've got to apply the pressure. We cannot come out in a defensive mindset of let's just react to what they're going to give us. And if we start off game 1 and that's the way that we look like JBB is like, guys, let's see what they're going to do for us or to us, I'm going to be pissed.
Me too.
I'm going to give you Tom Thibodeau. I'm going to be pissed.
Could you see the Cavs coming out with one of those like 33-25 first quarters?
I pray that we do, because that would be the way that we go into it, with a mindset of, we know that we came out of something that they didn't come out of. We know that we want to carry the momentum of Game 7 into this. That looks like early on, I need to see an offensive game plan that actually, you know, looks to feature Mobley, or looks to, you know, like shout out to Claw. He just joined us in here. Looks to put certain people in a position where we're like, hey, shout out Dr. Claw. Hey, we know that you guys don't have answers for some of the things we can do. I need to see that, like, from the tip. And if I see instead the Mike Brown philosophy and approach to a game, or what we've seen from JBB sometimes, where it's just like, just show us what you're going to do and we're going to find a way to counter it, I'm going to be like, please, let's not be that. That's not the way to go into this series. So, prediction, Jig, if that's what you're asking me for.
I'm asking you for a prediction.
I got our wine and gold good guys stealing one.
First game?
I got us stealing this first game. I feel like the time to do it is this game 1.
I like it.
I do. And I mean, I don't care if we come out and we're actually, you know, starting off the game and we're running and gunning 33-25, like you said. But then for the next couple of quarters, we change the way that we're playing and we turn it into the slugfest that we just came out of. Fine. Mm-hmm. Be in the driver's seat and be the team that's setting the tone. Like, decide if the first quarter is going to be run and gun Phoenix Suns, but then the second quarter is going to be, you know, Boston versus Detroit from 2005. Okay.
Yeah.
but let's be the ones who determine that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because one thing's for sure, their bench and their whole rotation is completely weakened by Porzingis being off the floor.
I agree with that. That's a 100%.
So, yeah.
I am not
Yeah.
as optimistic as you for this first game or this series in general. I
Sure.
think the Celtics are going to win this first game.
Okay.
I think the Cavs are going to come out firing in the first quarter. I'm optimistic about that. I mentioned that what I just mentioned because I think it's going to be something like 33-25 in that first
Okay.
quarter. But then I think the Celtics are going to come back, and I don't think the Cavs are going to be able to handle the firepower. I think that first game is going to end something along the lines of like, I don't think it's going to be insane, but I think it's going to be something like 102-95 or something like that.
Right.
And if the Cavs can steal one in Boston, then obviously you have a real series.
Okay.
As is always the case. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. I'm looking forward to watching this series.
And I mean, we've got second round basketball for the first time in 7 years.
I'm super excited. I'm really proud of this team. Really proud of this team.
Really proud of this team for pushing through that. Really proud of Donovan for showing, like, hey, I actually bring something to the table that's not just the stats that you see. Yeah, Claw here says you hit on my hot take about last series. Orlando's ahead of the Cavs with offensive process. Just can't shoot. So the biggest thing that we need to determine how they're going to approach this series tonight is whether or not Allen's going to be a full go. Let's start there. I hope that he is, because what we talked about is true, and that the Porzingis being out gives us an advantage if we can play bigger and if we can force them to play that physical style they don't want to play. So that's going to determine things first, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
What do we have? What is it? 6 o'clock for me. I'm Central Time. 6. So 7 o'clock tip. We got everything with the bean. You predicted that they probably wouldn't have, but what would need to happen in order for the Cavs to actually show up and steal it for you?
For the Cavs to steal this game, I think to steal this game, they're going to need to come out super physical.
Okay.
As you mentioned, I think they need to have learned from this last series, and they need to apply exactly what they learned in the same one. I mean, we know what they did in the regular season games that they had won. That's what it was. It was. I mean, obviously LeVert was in there, but they played them very physical. Now Donovan went the hell off. LeVert went the hell off. And if I recall correctly, I think Garland had big games too. I don't necessarily think it would be the same way in the playoffs. I think what would have to happen is very physical, and I think they have to start off hot. I don't think they're coming back on the Celtics. I don't think that's happening. I think it's hot start, be super physical, and don't try to play catch up on these guys, because I just don't think it's going to work.
Okay. Well, let's approach it like I'm gonna take this a game at a time. Like literally, because if you stand back and you're like, "Oh, this is how I see the series going," but one of the main things that I'm seeing from these other series, and most notably Minnesota and Denver, is I got a lot more respect for Chris Finch watching, and he's coaching this. Excuse me, with a torn whatever
I saw that. Yeah, he tore his. What did he tear? His ACL or his
something like that. Conley actually ran into him and he tore his knee up. So he's coaching from the sideline, like he's coaching and they got him hiding behind the scoreboard, so that he doesn't physically get ran over by the action on the court. He's not even on the front row, so he's got an assistant running things. But game to game, I'm seeing Minnesota is treating this because they didn't have Gobert for game 2. So they came out with a totally different way that they approached it. And I'm ready to just get into it game by game. And game 1 is all I care about right now,
I dig it.
So come out and hit him in the mouth, sit in the driver's seat, quarter to quarter with setting the tempo is what we've got to do for this to be a competitive game 1 and for the opportunity to just steal one. let me say this last thing. We're playing with house money, and people don't like to hear that, but the truth is,
I agree.
nobody expects this team to compete in this series. Nobody expects anything more than a gentleman's sweep.
I tend to agree with you.
So for me, I feel like when you take that expectation thing out of it, you don't take it out of it, you take it off of one team and you put it on the other. Team with all the pressure here for game one, and the team for all the pressure for this whole series should be Boston. So I like that. I like that. Let's play with that, especially with this team, a new leader establishing himself and showing that he's got the pulse of the how to reach guys and pull guys like Darius out of a funk mid-game. Let's go into the beam with that and see if we can't steal this first game here.
I like it.
Real quick, before we close out, we didn't talk anything about music or any of the distractions. That's when you know that we got a real series in front of us. I'm not even listening to anything right now other than this whole Kendrick and Drake thing. Like it's like trending number one in the
I
world.
saw some references to that. I don't know what's going on. What's going on with
that? We've had big time hip hop beefs in the past where it's like the world stops and what's happening. The last one that I really feel like happened was Jay-Z and Nas 20 years ago.
Yep.
Well, if you guys are, if you care to lock in on this, there's been about 6 different tracks released over the last few weeks between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And they've had a long, brooding dislike of each other for about 10 years. And this thing came to a head recently. So you could say that we're out of the eye of the storm now, because it's for all intents and purposes, people are talking like the battle is over. But I want to be on the record saying it really, the last couple of weeks really kind of, caught my fire. And I came out of it feeling like Kendrick really kind of, won this whole thing. There was some very strategic things he did with his responses and stuff, Jig, that it was just like that, one guy is clearly playing chess and the other guy is playing checkers. So that has been the thing that's been, like every time I'm logging out of or turning off an NBA playoff game, I'm switching over to that. They've been strategic with dropping these things right after playoff games and stuff. So,
okay.
That's
I
what the
always
whole
wonder
world
sometimes if these are like real or if this is like wrestling where these guys are both in on the whole deal and they're.
Yeah, no. The gloves came off. They got to talking about families and kids. And,
then that's probably real.
It was real.
Yeah, when guys get into that,
it's pulling in people's wives and
yeah, that's probably legit.
Exposing the fact that you're probably going through a divorce right now and you may have an illegitimate child. It was like,
okay, yeah, no, then that's probably legit. That's probably legit.
I said all that to say, the main track from this is Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. I can almost guarantee you're going to hear it on the broadcast tonight. So probably you want to familiarize yourself with that track. It's like a West Coast kind of, like anthem kind of thing that as soon as it dropped this past Friday, like I haven't been able to stop playing it since. It feels like we went back to early 90s West Coast and I should, see these dudes representing with their little things and stuff. And it's pretty dope. So that's all I've been listening to. And it was born to me from that battle. So in that energy, we gotta be the ones to bring the fight tonight.
I agree.
We gotta be the ones that come with that Kendrick energy.
Got to bring it. Game
1 tonight, Cavs in Boston. Rubber Rim Job, man. Season 3, episode 15.
Let's rock.
We have sufficiently potted up.
Let's let it rock.
Yes, sir.